We are already on 10:10. So, hi everyone. I'm Asarai. I'm currently working with Obstry Solution as a DevOps specialist. I have around 4 years of experience and have worked around various DevOps tools and technology. I'm also a trainer and do provide multiple corporate training. Recently, I had a session with this labs. I love to explore new things and get myself trained on new things. Ravish, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Asta. So, guys, my name is Ravish. I'm your co-speaker for today's workshop on IAM. I'm working as a DevOps specialist in Offstream and having a 5 years of experience in DevOps. I'm working on various DevOps tools and cloud platforms. Preferably, I'm working on AWS cloud only, so, and there are various services that they are offering. And apart from that, I'm also doing open source contribution in on Terraform modules. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. Over to you, Asta.
Thanks, Ravish. So, as we have seen, we do have a wide range of audience from very beginner to the person who have experience. So, we will take care of our very beginner as well. So, we will start from very when we enter into our AWS world, where we do have a root account, and the root account is very open, and you can explore each and every service. So now that you have already entered the AWS world and you are already exploring it, you are able to access your EC tools, your S3s, and each and every service since you are the root account, and that's the kind of super admin account. Now you want to pass this access, your account access to someone else. Will you be willing to give this very root account access? You can, of course, but there will be consequences because this is very root account. Anybody can do anything, and we already know we have to pay bills around AWS. So we don't want everybody doing everything, or we do want to restrict the access. For that scenario, what we will do, we will take the help of AWS IAM. So what is basically AWS IAM? It is a web service that help you to securely control access to AWS. So that's the pretty much solution, and that's the topic of the day. So what we as talked about, we don't want, currently we were exploring ourselves, we were very beginner to AWS, but going further, when we are sharing the account, we don't want to give that root access to each and everyone. We want to authorize the person who's entering and limit that person access. So these two things, the main authorization where we scan the person who's being entering our AWS account, and to checking whether that person can use that very functionality is done through AWS IAM. Now, if a person enters AWS, and, so hope you get till now. Have How many of you are still the person who are carrying on there with your root account and have never tried, switching to the other user? Do we have any? And hope you are already aware of the consequences. You don't want your bills to go up, you don't want to breach your security. uh, that's why you need basically uh, to create users around it. So users, what are basically users in AWS? User can be a person or an application that want to interact with the AWS. Basically, since till now you were alone, now you want your friend as well as to work on a project with you. So what you will do, you will create a user for your friend and give them the very access. Now, how you or your friend to interact with AWS, that's the other question. There are multiple ways. There are like two types of ways in which you can interact with your AWS. So the very first way is through console, like we all do, like our root account used to do, where we see each and every services around. Or if you are user, You can sue the restricted services around. Second is programmatic access. For this, for console access, wait a minute, sorry. For console access, what we require is username and password. But for programmatic access, we require is access key and secret key. Programmatic access are basically used to give like a, when you are trying to automate or you are trying to access your AWS account through your local or your through EC2 instance or somewhere, or through any of the application. In that case, you will be requiring programmatic access. Hope I am clear till now. If anybody have any doubt, please raise it. Please raise it, since we want it to be interactive, and hope this is the very basic. And I think my voice do echo.
Can you
Can anybody else feels it?
Now it is fine.
please repeat the type of access once?
Okay, sure. So basically, we have two kinds of access. First is console access, where we do have a username and password. So this is the very access on your, whenever you go to your console. Like take an example as Chrome, and there you enter, there you are asked for sign in. That sign in requires two things: your username and password, also your account ID, but that too is always included whenever we pass our URL, our account URL to someone. Second is like programmatic access. This requires access key and secret key. um, like if anyone of you have ever used AWS CLI in order to interact with your AWS, what the CLI require is AWS configure. And how you're going to in that configure will ask you few information, like what is your access key, what is your secret key, then what is the default reason you are working on. These are that like the basic information that's being required. Also, you can store this into your applications, with the applications which are take an example, like we have S3 bucket. That S3 bucket stores some data which is being required by your application. Now your application required to access that very S3 bucket. In that case, you can create a user. That user do have a programmatic access, like with access key and secret key, and you can download them and store it in your very application and run that application to interact with S3. Hope I am clear now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's move forward. Okay, till now, what we have seen is unrestricted access. We are giving programmatic access. We are giving access to control, but we are not defining what kind of access we are giving. To check what kind of access or what kind of action user can take, who can like which resource that user can access, and when they can be accessed. All these things are controlled through policies. So in simple words, a policy is an object that associate with an user or an identity, and evaluates your very IAM principle to make a request. For example, a user come and make a request on your AWS. Your AWS, the very request will go to IAM. IAM will confirm it with policy whether to allow the access or deny the access. In the case access is allowed, you will be able to view your resource page. Or if you are denied, you are back to your request page. This is a kind of cycle. The policy is very kind of like a checklist whether you are allowed or you are denied. Okay, now let's take, this is a kind of a basic flow which a policy follows. For example, a user is entering AWS, and he has been authenticated. He has already been authorized. Now he want authentications. The user is already into AWS world. Now he is looking to access something. Where comes the authorization? Now he sends the access request. This is the very checklist, authorization checklist. Okay, so you are allowed this, you are not allowed this kind of checklist. Now he is asking a request on S3 bucket to list the S3 bucket. So this can be through console or API operation, and the IAM will check whether the effect, whether that very person is allowed or denied the access. Hope that makes sense. We'll have a demo around this if doesn't make sense now. Uh,
Also, guys, if you have any kind of issue, like if anything is not clear to you guys, you can just ping us in the middle as well. We can try to uh, resolve anything, any kind of issue that you're facing regarding anything. If anything is not clear, we can repeat it as well. Please continue.
Okay, thanks, Ravish. So moving further, we do have a format to write policies. For policy do comes in a JSON format, and that JSON formats consist of certain components. This flow doesn't look very good, but it's kind of simple. Don't worry about it. First things, so very top level elements are like version, ID, and statement. ID is optional one, whether you want to give it or not. And version is something which is controlled by your AWS. So the current version we have is, I think, 2012, 10, and 17. Or but if you provide the version, you will have like latest amenities. If you don't, the default it will go to the default version, which basically lacks some new features. Then comes the statement. Statement is kind of the major part of your policy documentation. It's hold multiple statement enclosed in a JSON bracket. Then we have these. These are like what we include inside our statement. So like we do have SID. This is like statement ID. This is also an like an optional identifier. You can include it with an IAM policy to help you to identify the purpose of that policy. Like if you are creating a policy on S3, so you can define your SIDs or statement ID. SID is basically statement ID as policy on S3. Okay, then effect. There are two kind of effects. Like in the previous, you were able to see effect. This very effect, allow or deny. Whether you want to allow or whether you want to make a policy to allow or deny the very statement. Then comes the principal. Principal is the person or the application that make request. For example, in our case, a user is making request or on for access on S3. In this very case, we have a user which is making request to have the list of bucket on S3. So here the principal is user. And then action, what means what action that person can take. The action here that in the previous example the user want to take was to list the bucket. Okay, now resource allow you to define the specific resource policy statement using the ARN. Now you do have list of buckets. Now you're looking not just to define the list of buckets, but you want to define the object inside the list of buckets. Hope everybody is clear with what is S3. If not, please let us know. We'll have a small description of what we are trying to say here as well. So currently we do have a bucket do have certain objects. Now you want your user to have only limit to a particular bucket. You don't want him or her to access any other bucket. In that case, you can define your resource as resource ARN. Currently, we if we want to allow every of the resource kind, we give a kind of star, which is like a wild card character to say that everything around this S3 is every resource which is present in S3 is being allowed. Now last is the condition block. So the condition block is like also an optional block. It gives you a greater kind of control on the effect which is going to come out. It's kind of like a boolean operator. Okay,
Yes, Asa, sorry. Actually, Komal was asking about S3. She want to know a bit about S3. So if you
yeah.
want me to just...
And also, Asta, kindly repeat the resources one also. I didn't get it properly. The last slide. Yeah, resources. Thank you.
Sure. So, Kumal, resources are basically, if you are trying to, S3 is basically a storage area, kind of storage in AWS, which is like simple. Ravish, can you help me with the full form?
Yes, yes. It is a simple storage service. It is a kind of a object storage. So you must have seen Google Drive, right? You are placing any kind of document over there. You are uploading PPTs. You are uploading your documents and all those stuffs, right? So S3 is a kind of Google Drive only. It is a kind of Google Drive because it is a object kind of storage. So you must have heard about block storage and object storage. So AWS offers both type of storages. From block storage concept, they provide EBS, which is elastic block storage, which is basically associated with the instance. But they also offer object based storage, wherein you can store your backups and all those stuffs, and the cost of that particular storage is very, very low. So S3 you can think of as a Google Drive, wherein you can just dump all your data
Okay.
or files and all kind of stuff. So it is a object storage.
Okay, thank you, Ravish. And here, the resource, the very resource, you can take it as your so S3 stores in the kind of buckets. It has things known as bucket, where you basically store your objects. Each bucket is denoted. Here we can say each bucket is one resource. Okay. Now, if you want your user to access each and every resource or each and every bucket in S3, you can denote your resources with the star, the wildcard character. If not, if you want your user can access only a certain resource or a certain S3 bucket, what you can do is provide the ARN. ARN is basically a unique identity which are associated with each and every resource around the AWS world. And it has a specific format like it goes AWS S3, then you have your account ID and the resource name. Since S3 is global, so we do not require the account ID over there, so we do have a kind of colon situation. If I can, okay, like can you see this here, ARN? Here the resource is ARN. So this very example says this user can, so let's start the downward one. It says we this is the statement ID, which is kind of optional. The action which the user can take is get object. Get object from where? From this resource. What this resource says? It is giving an ARN of an example bucket. So we are restricting this very resource to get only the objects, no other obsolescence, just get the object from this very bucket. And the effect is allowed. If the effect is denied, this person will not be able to get the object from the very bucket. Next is around the EC2 instance. We are saying that user can have EC2, if user can describe the EC2 instance, start the EC2 instance, and or stop it, and effect is allowed. Now resource, you can see this very star. This says that whatever resource is present in EC2, user can have access, can perform these very accession on each and every resource. The star denote every resource. Okay. And what are the condition is like an as you can see this IP address. So we are saying that only this IP address, if user is approaching through this IP address or the source IP, then only he is allowed. Hope this is clear. And if you have any question, please raise it. I don't see any in the chat box. Let me move further. Okay, so we are talking about policy. You need not to worry and see and write like these kind of things on your own in the very beginning. Uh, you do have policies which are like managed policy. First comes the AWS managed policy. These are the policies which are given to you by AWS. You can directly attach it to your user, or if you are making the users into the group, you can attach it there, and you can directly utilize it. Not need to take the headache of initially when you are in very start stage to write the whole policy. And the second is custom policy. Custom policy is like the policy we manage. The last policy which you have seen is like a custom policy where we want amalgamation of EC2 policy around EC2 and S3. That's the example of custom policy. Next is inline policy. So inline policies are the policy which we embed directly with the user. Means they are not like a managed policy. The above two are managed policy. Let me have pop up of other things as well, so we can differentiate between the three. First come the multiple entity. Entity here denotes user, groups, roles, whatever are the entities which are in AWS word. Policy customization, these are like we do have a control on our policy, we can customize it. That's around the policy customization. And also the attachment limit. We do have attachment limit that only certain number of this kind of policies can be attached. So first is like managed policy. We can have managed policy with multiple entities. One managed policy can be attached to multiple users. But since this is, as I already told, this are like AWS managed policy, we so no customization is allowed there, and it do have an attachment limit. Second is custom policy. The policy which we seen in the last example was the custom policy, and it can be also attached to multiple users currently. And we can customize it. The very last policy we have seen was the customized policy. And attachment limit, yes, it do have attachment limit. Inline policy, so inline policy I think will be better explained in demo at the time of demo, while the creation of it. But for here, they are like custom policies, but they cannot attach to multiple entities. If you are creating an inline policy, it will be created for the very user, and inside the very user statement. So you cannot utilize that inline policy for any other user. But the good thing about it is, the only good thing, it do not have attachment limits. User can have as many as inline policy it want to have. But of course the management of inline policy is difficult, because you have to go inside the entity and search for what are the policies being attached. And if they are multiple, then you have to look for how they are being acting. Okay, so yeah, there are a lot of policies, and we have seen how to write the policies. But for beginners, this is like a lot of intake. No worries, we do have, AWS do provide us with policy generator. So we'll have demo around this. So what does policy generator do is, on your clicks will create the JSON file which we have seen before, and you can utilize that very JSON into your attachment. Do anybody have any question around the last like policy types and policy generator or anything?
Guys, you can like ping us at any point of time if anything is not clear, right? So feel free to just ping us in the middle as well if anything is not clear.
Okay. Now moving to policy stimulator, as I told you, now think of a scenario: you have a user and you have attached multiple policy to that user. You have attached some custom policies. Now that user is impacted by some managed policy. Do have some inline policies. How you're going to test anything? How you're so to help us out with that, we have policy stimulator. Also, if you are introducing any custom policy, you want to check whether that custom policy is effective or not. You just want to cross check that very thing. You can create a user and attach that custom policy and check through the stimulator whether it's working in the desired way or not. So we have learned around the policy which can be attached to your user, and how it's being working, how it's being written. We have learned a lot in the terms of policy. So what are these policy known as? We are attaching to user. That's why this policy is known as these policy, which have we have seen till now, is known as identity based policy. So it's basically the based policy are the policy which are attached to user or group or a rule. So this is, we do have other kinds of policy as well. Those will be covered later in the slide in the upcoming session. But currently, the policy which we have learned, which we are attaching to an identity, which we are calling as user, is known as identity based policy. Okay, now moving forward, we have groups. So now think, now you are growing into an organization. Till now, you and you two or your friends were only working on AWS. What's the condition that you are growing into an organization, and it's very hard to manage policies for individual user. Currently, we were seeing that we are attaching the policy to the user, but when there are large number of user, of course, it's hard. So we have IAM user, which are the better way to manage user as well as their access around it. Here you can see uh, we have an AWS account with two types of groups, like DevOps groups and test dev groups. We can have multiple users around them, and now at the place of attaching the policy on the user level, we will attach them to the group level. So we don't have to attach policy, go inside each and every user and look on the policy which are being attached and how they are working. And each and every time whenever you want to update a policy, or there is like an update term going on, and you don't want to go inside each and every user and look into the policy being attached and revoke the access, or allow any access. So that can be done on the very group level. So this is like a how a group pool looks like. We have many users, we have many policy. What does group do? It brings the policy which is being attached to it and to be utilized by the users. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, let's move forward if you don't have any question. So we have talk in terms of currently we have talk in terms of users and the groups they are associated with. These are the two identities. Now, what if your EC2 instance or your EC2 instance want to access S3? What you have done till now, what we have learned from is, you have created a user which has access to, which has a policy attached, which has access to your S3, and you have took the access key and a secret key of that user and provisioned into your AWS CLI to access the S3, and that will work. No doubt that will work. But what are the consequences? Think if any other user go inside and look into, so those credential are very exposed into .aws folder, and he or she can look into what are your secret key and access key, and can be utilized into a worse way, and that's a kind of security breach. So to save us from such scenario, we have IAM role. What does this IAM role help with us with? It create a trust, and so it creates a trust, and it works on the permission around that trust. So these are like who can assume this role. Trust is who can assume this role, and permission is what you can do after assuming that role. For example, if in the case I explained before, we can create a role and we can attach it to our very EC2 instance. Okay. uh, okay. So like we can create a role and we can attach it to our very EC2 instance. Like here, role is nothing. It's also kind of roles also do have policies. This we want to write to S3. Our EC2 want to write to S3. We'll have a role which has a policy which can write to S3, and then we can create a trust entity which is our EC2, which for this particular role, and we can attach that trust entity here. Does that make sense? Do anybody have any doubt? Your trust entities can be anything, resource. In fact, role can be attached to your users, and then we have cross account user, which you can see further. So,
Asta,
yes.
so simply we can say that this is a very temporary thing and anyone can assume it and go out of it after doing the work. IAM role.
Yes, roles are kind of a, you can say, a temporary credentials that are provided to your users. Because if you are assuming, like if you use assume role policy, in that case, you are assuming that particular role, and then you are provided with the temporary credentials. That
Okay.
you will be provided with the security key, the access key, and the access token. And that access token is valid for a on temporary basis. Like it has a particular duration. It could be valid for 15 minutes, for 1 hour, 2 hour, 12 hours, like that.
Okay. Okay. And the
Okay.
time period is defined by whom, like account user or it a predefined time.
Yeah, we can define it like we can define it via code as well, because we have AWS CLI access, so we will be able to do it from there.
Okay.
Okay. The last come, if we are very beginner and we don't know which area we want to which are area the upcoming user will be exploring, and we want help around this. So AWS also provide help in the terms of access advisor, and it will tell you what are the accesses you have currently given, what are being utilized. Like you can see in this very picture that they are like AWS EC2 instance has was used 12 days ago. Okay, this is being used very much. Test role, this EC2 service is used today. Okay, very much in use. But this very role has like a limit was being used 187 days ago. Might be we can check out if this role is being this very policy is not being required, and we can remove it. That's the work on of Access Advisor. Now, summing up till what we have learned till now, AWS divide all these things into two parts: identities and permissions. Identities, are users, groups, roles, and credential. Permissions are policies and the very statement inside the policy. This is kind of hierarchy. Uh, if nobody have any confusion, then we can move to demo part, or let's please tell us if you have any doubt till now.
Asta, could you please explain little bit more about that role?
Sure. Um, so I was giving you an example. Monica, see, I hope it will get much clearer with demo, but let's focus on the example again. Now, what you want is you have your S3 bucket. and you have a EC2 instance. Now your EC2 instance want to access your S3 bucket. What you will do initially, you will create a user with access key, the simple user with access key and secret key, and you will store that access key and secret key into your EC2, and that EC2 instance will be able to access your S3 via CLI. But there can be like a security breach. Let me share my screen for the. Wait a minute. Can you all see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
Asha.
yes.
What happened, Monica, when we are trying to access our EC2 with the user, we have to store uh, our credential on S3 in this term, AWS configure, and these are the terms it asks for. I'll remove this because if you can see it now, you can access my account. Okay, like I'm saying, if you can see it now, you do know how you can see my account ID, and you can this is very vulnerable for me now. I have to delete this. In the same way, if another user who is like for just for checking out your EC2 instance, who has no relation to your AWS world, enters or just enter into your EC2 instance for audit purpose, what he or she can do is he or she can just go inside your .aws, and here you can see the credential are being stored. This credential can be copied and be utilized into a worse way. This is kind of what to say. This is kind of a breach to the system. And whereas for AWS CLI, there is no need to store in the case you are creating a role and attaching to your EC2 instance. Yes, you can access your S3, but if you will see here, I'll do this ls minus la. There is no .aws. So the role is being utilized. You are able to use S3, but you don't require it via user. You are doing it directly through role, and there is no requirement of what to say storing your credential on your EC2 instance. Okay.
And also, guys, you must have seen that you like it is not a best practice to store your credentials anywhere inside your, like you must have seen in GitHub or in Bitbucket as well. You never ever save your passwords and stuff like that, all the security things, right? So similar in a similar way, it is not a best practice to basically store your credential, your AWS user credential inside your EC2 instance, because if any person have access for that EC2 instance now, he or she will be able to access your AWS resources depending upon the permission that particular user has. So the best practice in for AWS is to create or assign a role to that particular instance instead of uh, getting down the credential inside the EC2 instance.
Okay, for example, now you in a moment will be able to see my account ID, and you have like both. You might if you have taken the screenshot of previous screen with the secret key and credential, you will be able to access my AWS account and explore all the area which that user has access to. Makes sense now? Why roles are essential and why they are being brought. Also, we have like other kinds of roles which will make more sense when Ravish will explain around them. So currently, let's start with the use case we have studied. We have learned till now. First was we were entering into a very new account. This is kind of very new account. So you can check on your security credential and make sure like you have your password and every multi-password authentication activated. That's kind of like best practice. And do remove your access key and access key this key from your root account, because this root account is like a super user, and we don't want anybody else who do have access in any way can have access to these keys. So the first very thing will be, and the second thing is it's not a good practice to log in using your root account. Always do have other accounts around it, always do have other user around it. The user can have any permissions, but yes, do have other users. Currently I have created a user. The user creation is simple. Let's create one more, like ops user 2. Here you can see there are like two kind of access. The one we talk about, we in order to for a user to enter into AWS World, we have two kind of access: the programmatic access and the console access. Now we are saying, okay, for now we just need console access. I'll copy this one. And okay, uh, do I require? You can ask your user to reset the password. For the time being, for me, no. Okay, here you can see attach the policy directly. Can you see this very sign? These are like AWS managed policy. If you will click on policy, here also you can see AWS managed policy, AWS managed job function, and customer managed policy. So currently we are going to attach an AWS policy, since we haven't learned till now how to create one of our own. So like give this. So initially whenever a new developer enter, you don't want that person to have other access than to explore. So what you can do is that give that person only read only access. Like in such, there's like a full read only access.
Capital R.
Okay, that's like not case sensitive. Oh, let me see.
Scroll. Can you scroll? It's alphabetically sorted, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's there. Actually, it was not loaded. Okay. Next to tag, it's very essential to add the tag for which the user is, and what kind of access is the user going around. Currently, we are skipping this very part. And yes, our user is there. Okay, close. Hope we are clear how to create a user. Now, this is my root account. I have already logged in into other user. That's like created 4 hours ago only, not very yet. This user also has only the read only access. This is kind of a new user into the AWS world. Let me uh, switch to another console, because we cannot access same kind of console. Now this user has like read permission on everything, but what it cannot do is perform anything. It has read contently. This is very new running account. So if we have S3, I think I created a bucket around it. So yes, it has read permission around everything, but it cannot do anything. If I try to delete it, say permanently delete, it will say fail to delete, access denied. So let's attach a policy to our user. Currently, we are going to see how the inline policy works. Okay. What we mentioned, either we can have create our own JSON. You can see the version in the statement, and or we can have utilize this policy generator. So what I want to delete an object around my S3 bucket. I'll select S3 will see, we can, we can see, write permission, and it says delete object. You can filter down your access or policy to object level. So this is like a granular level access kind of things which run on AWS. It also asks for resources. So, like told before, you can add ARN. The good thing is this will allow you to search. This will create a auto ARN for you. But if you will enter star, it will be like, if you will say anything, it will say star. As mentioned before, it's like a wildcat character. So currently, I'm switching to all resources and attaching this very policy. You can add a condition as well. See source IP, the IP range you want to allow to access this particular S3. Review policy. You can give this policy a name. Let me give this S3 delete object policy. Now we have an inline policy. Again, let's see whether our policy is working or not. Let me delete one of these. Okay, successfully deleted the object. Now try to create. Can I create or upload something? Add file. Let's say this one. See, still I do not have upload permission. So you can granularize your permission and give very specific permission to the user you want to give. Next, coming to roles.
Also, guys, sorry to interrupt, Asa. So, guys, as Asa was talking about inline policies, right? So, you guys are familiar with the inline policies, right? Because Asa has already like given a demo as well as she had taught a bit about it. So, anyone has any issues regarding the inline policies and other policies that are there?
Uh, if you can explain one more time, Ravish, it's hard to catch up on the first, so it'll be good.
Okay. Currently, we have an inline
There is a
policy is a policy
uh,
which is directly attached to user. If you will see, while if you will go and search this inline policy into this, you will not see this. Like S3, my policy was. Let me copy it once more. I attach it on user once. Let me open another tab.
okay. So
Try.
you are saying it is limited to a resource. We can only give it to a user or a group.
Yeah, it can be
Technology.
attached to an entity. It cannot be managed. It cannot be reutilized. So in order to reutilize this policy, we have to create a custom policy, which can be created from here. Now let's see. We now to the very same user, I'll create a custom policy and give that user. Currently, what we have seen, that user was unable to upload or create. Okay. Now I'll attach a custom policy to that user on the very S3. Now I can say you have to have every right permission. Okay. See, it has create job. If you'll expand this, we have already seen this. Okay, put object. So this is the permission we're looking for. Currently, I'm giving complete right permission, and we are saying that this is for all the resources. Okay. No, I don't want to add attach. So this is like S3 complete right policy. Okay.
Yes.
create this policy.
I think no one asks if there is a customer managed policy. Why do we need an inline policy then?
Okay, now you think of a scenario that this customer managed you when I told you that this customer managed policy are do have a limitations, to have an attachment limitation. If you remember the very slide,
Yeah, there are I think 10 or something,
yes,
10 policies per a user or group, right?
yes. Now, if what in the case you are looking for a temporary kind of access to be provided or to revoke, and what you will do for a particular from a particular user, their inline policy comes into help. Hope that makes clear. Okay. Now we do have.
I think there is one more question in the chat window. If Ravish or someone can reply to that.
Sure, sure, sure. Let me have a look on the permission.
Of course, you have
Oh,
you can change the permission once granted.
yes, Komal, we can change that.
Hmm. Now let me attach.
Can you show that, Asta? Like once the user was created by you, correct? So you
Yes.
have given him one permission.
Okay.
So how will you change that?
Okay. Currently, what I was saying is this is like S3 delete object policy, which was being attached. Now that user was not able to upload anything. Now what I am trying to do is I am upgrading the person's policy. Now that this very user can do anything around the S3 bucket. So I'll go. Okay, these are groups.
Attach existing policy.
This is S3 complete write policy. Okay. See, this is inline. Now we can see all the three kind of policy. This is managed policy, which we initially started that our user was able to read everything around the AWS word. Second, we give him permission around this inline with the inline policy to delete the object. Now we are saying that user can do anything with the what is around the right inside the S3 bucket. Now let's try to upload. Let's try to upload object and see. Uploaded successfully. So hope this solves three of our questions. Like, what's the difference between different kind of policies? Why we exactly need custom policy or the inline policies, and also whether we can upgrade the policy of a person. Do we have any question? Any other question around this?
No.
Okay.
I think we are good.
Okay. And we are also done with policy generator. So with the simple text, you are able to generate the policy, but you can also, we can learn how to write, what to say, the policy in the JSON as well. So now comes the stimulator. Um, Now let me select one of the user. This is what I have to upgrade this. Okay, I'm selecting user one. We have like three policies. Now I want to check whether this person has EC2 access. Select all. Whether this person has EC2 access. It will give you around read and see. Most of the access are denied, but these are allowed. Can someone describe why we have some access which are written as describe as allowed for the current use case, where we have like read only access, S3 delete access, S3 complete write access, and we are checking our stimulator for Amazon EC2. Why we have this delete VPN connection? Uh, deregister image, or delete, or this kind of access has been denied, whereas all the describe access which we can see are allowed. Do anybody? I think we are pretty much clear. When we enter the AWS world, we created a user and we give that user access for the read only access. The read only access does allow to describe or to list out, or to see the things which are going around AWS world. But uh, what other access we have given us for S3, not for EC2. That's why this very person, this very user cannot perform anything around EC2, whether it be deletion or tag or any other function. That's therefore what we can see is only the permission which looks like read permission are as allowed permission, and whereas all the permission which are like action permission, for example delete, upgrade, deregister, or to create or any kind of such permission are being denied. Do anybody have any question around this? Okay, can I
Clear,
do?
Asta.
Yeah, do you want any other policy to be checked, like we can check on S3? Oh, this is taking time. Okay, I don't know why this is taking time to reload. Let's move further. Now we can learn. Hope this is very clear why we use a stimulator. We use a stimulator around checking our permission. We can also check, like if you want to check a policy, what will be the permission around it, and you can also check the permission of the existing user, what this person is doing around the things. And the last thing which we can use for controlling the access is access advisor. I think this list is not going to be very long. So this is like policies which are granted, like last access today, and if you will see the other, you can say not accessed. So if you want, you can, since for now this is like a read only access, if this is like other level of access, you can revoke this access with the help of knowing that the very person is not utilizing this access. Hope that makes sense. Moving forward to rules. Okay. I think the scenario which I was going to explain is already I have shown it. You remember? Okay, let me again show it. Currently, I have like two machines. Okay. Currently, I have two machine. One is with role and without role. So let me explain you what the role I have created. This is an S3 role. Same role is also an identity like a user. So what you can do is you can attach policy to this identity as well. Here I have given this S3 role policy as Amazon S3 full access. This S3 role can access your Amazon fully. And the very example I explained before, I have like uh, two EC2 instance, and one is with role and one is without role. So let me tell you one thing: when you can attach a role to an EC2 instance. So while the creation of EC2 instance, mm, here you can see IAM role. Here you can see the role, and here is you can attach it. Moving once before launch is the thing you can attach the IAM role. After being launched, there is no way you can attach an IAM role to an EC2 instance. Okay, so now I already have two launched instance. One is with role and one is without role. And as I told you. Let me connect to this instance. It's not complete. Okay, this is uh, this is the role. This is the account which is without role. So yes, what I have done here is in order to access our S3, I have attached credentials. Now the very first thing we have already discussed around us. Yes, I can view the credential. Anybody entering this account can view this credential. Sorry, I have to cat. Yep, I don't want that. Although the very function which run around both is very same. If I want to list the thing around IAM bucket, I can do it.
Uh, is it stuck for me or everyone?
Yes, actually, there was some network issue at Asa's end. So, guys,
Oh,
in the meantime, if you like, she's joining in a minute or two. So, in the meantime, if you guys have any doubts or anything that is not clear or anything that you want to know more about IAM, you can you feel free to just ask questions about it.
Hello,
Yes, Asa, you're audible.
was I disconnected?
Yes, you got disconnected.
Oh, sorry. Okay, that explains. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so I think I have a momentary. So as I explained, we have like two EC2 instance. One is with I don't know till where I was when I last left. Okay, so we have like two EC2 instance. One is with role. I think we have already explained this scenario, but let me reiterate this very scenario. And other is the one which we have without role. Okay. The one with role, what's wrong with that is we already know that we have our credentials stored, and don't worry guys, I will delete my credential from delete this very user which has this credentials. Nobody can use it in that case. And here also the permission which I had given, I remember, was around AWS S3 LS. And yes,
Why are we storing credentials over this?
because this is like this is not a role, and the I have in order to access the S3, I have stored a user around it. But in the case we have role, there is no need to store the current credential.
Like just to differentiate between these two,
These
like
two
to
ways.
demonstrate why
Why?
we should use roles instead of storing credentials.
Oh, okay.
Hope that makes sense.
Yes, obviously, Asa. Thanks.
Okay, we will see. I do not have any stored credential or .aws being here, and hope roles are being cleared and we can move further on further topics. Please let us know if anybody have any confusion. Okay, Ravish, let's move to the much bigger scenario, which is around the organization and how these groups are accumulated further and making a complete organization.
Sure, Asta. Also, guys, like I've shared a feedback form in the chat link. Like please fill up the feedback form as in when you are comfortable. Okay. So now, just give me a minute. I'm just sharing my screen, and then think we are good to go. I'm so sorry. Okay. So, guys, as anyone can just tell me why, what is organization in general, and why do we have organizations? So, what first thing comes in your mind when we say organization? Anyone? Uh, okay, I'll continue with that. So in AWS organization is basically it is a kind of structure wherein you can associate multiple accounts and also you can create organizational units. So what are organizational units now? So you have created a master account, and inside that particular master account you are creating another account. You can create another AWS account, or what you can do is you can create an organization unit. Inside that organization unit you can create multiple accounts. So, what are these organizational units in general? So, suppose you have an organization unit with the name of, say, UAT environment, right? And you have another organization unit with the name of, say, Sandbox, another organization unit with the name of, say, Security, and another organization unit with the name of Networking. So, all these organizational units are basically are differentiated on the basis of functions they perform. So in security, as I was talking about organizational unit in terms of security, so what we can do is all the security related stuffs we keep in that particular organizational unit. So security stuffs like CloudTrail, enabling the CloudTrail logs, all the logs from all the accounts will be stored in that particular organization unit of security. Similarly, for networking, all the network components, be it internet gateway, NAT gateway, every other like firewalls, we will configure it in a network organization unit. And all that that particular network organization unit will be handled by our networking team. So we can differentiate on the basis of function a particular person or a particular team perform. We can create organizational units, and they can cater to that particular organization depending upon what type of function they perform, right? So what is the advantage of using these this organization unit is It provides isolation for billing, security, and resilience. So if suppose you have multiple AWS accounts, right? And when you are built, you are basically built for each and account, each and every account separately. So it is very cumbersome process for you to check in, like you have to attach credit card and all those stuff in all your accounts, right? So what this AWS organization does for you is, it basically provides you an isolation billing for all the organization unit, but it would be paid from a single account. Like you have a same like a single master account, inside which you can create multiple organization units, and each organization unit you can have multiple accounts as well. As you can see in the diagram, over here we have organization unit, right? And over there there are different AWS accounts that are associated with that organization unit. The other advantage of using AWS organization you can think of is, suppose you are using a single AWS account, right? So you will be given some free tier quota or access for few of the resources, right? So in this case, as many accounts you create inside that particular organization, you will be basically adding up the free quota of all those AWS accounts. So suppose in one account you will be given say 90 hours of EC2 access, suppose. And in similarly, if you have three accounts inside a particular organization, you will be having 90 hours for each AWS account, free in a free tier architecture way. And then it simplified the creation of new AWS accounts. So it is very simple if you want to create a new account inside an organization unit or under a root account as well. I'll show you that in the demo as well, like how we will be able to create an organizational unit and a new account inside that particular organization. And also please note that once you create a new account, or you add a new account, it will be added under the root account only. So you can move that account from the root account to their desired organization unit. Suppose you are adding a new account for your networking account, right? So by default it will be added under the root account first, then you can move that account from root account to the networking account. And then the other advantages are logically group AWS accounts for management convenience, as we are grouping them on the basis of their organization units and their functionalities that they perform. Then the simplified billing, as we like I have talked about it earlier as well, that the billing is simplified because now you don't have to pay to AWS separately. You can directly pay from your organization directly, and you will be charged separately for each organizational unit. You have a clear structure wherein you can check that for UAT account I will be charged this much, for my say networking account I will be charged this much, and for my sandbox environment I will be charged this much, right? And there is a hierarchical grouping of accounts uh, in organization, which can meet the compliance needs, because compliance needs you can thought of as I was talking about security components and the networking components over there. So there are some compliances related to say some banking AWS, or like some bank is using some AWS organizations. In that case they have to met some criteria or some compliance for that case. So in that case they have to create a networking account separately, and they can create a security account separately in order to meet the compliance criteria. Next, as I was talking about, it multiplied the free tier and easy to create and add new accounts. So the free tier account basically gets multiplied, and it is very easy to create and add new accounts in AWS organization. Okay, so in this AWS organization, you can also see that there are some policies, right? There is some policy that is attached to organization unit, and then you can see there is another policy that is associated with your AWS account, right? So why are we associating policies on organization unit and AWS account if we are already giving or assigning policies and on the user level access? Anyone?
I think it is because so that we can provide permissions on the whole organization level rather than going into the each account.
Yes, yes, perfect. So what we
Just for
do?
the management.
Yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
for better management or single place management, I think, because it will
Yes.
be
So
very hectic for going each account, right?
yes. So what you can do is you can set up an or you can say a root level permissions, or you can say boundary or permission sets that all the accounts under that root account or under that organization unit will automatically have, or they inherit from their parent account. So if suppose if I attach a particular policy on this organization unit, right, and all the organization unit under that organization unit, or all the accounts under that organization unit will automatically inherit those policies which are basically applied on their parent organization unit, right. Also the other advantage of using organization is, suppose you must have heard about a RAM, right? In AWS there is a resource access manager. So if you want to say, if you want to share your VPC to a particular to a different account, suppose you have account A and account B, right, and you are using resource access manager in that case, so you have to manually allow it, and then you have to accept accept from account A, you are accepting the permissions for or VPC from account B, right? And if suppose there are hundreds of account, and you have to do such kind of stuff, it will be a very cumbersome process, right? So what you can do is, you have organizations in which you have to simply uh, do resource access manager at the organization level or at the organization unit level. Then all the accounts that are added under that organization or that under that organization unit will automatically have those VPCs shared with them. Do you have any doubt regarding this particular point that I was telling? You can tell me. I will also repeat it or show you in a better way if it if it is not clear.
Do we manage these policies using IAM only, or is there any other service for that?
No,
Because
no,
in
no.
IAM, as you have shown, I didn't see something to share or something like that.
Yes. There is a different concept or different policies for managing our organization. I'll come in the latest slides regarding these policies. These policies are called SCPs, service control policies. So through these policies, we are basically controlling our accounts or root account or our organizations only. We are not managing our IAM users or our groups or roles. So even if I apply these policies at the root or the organization level, I still need IAM access, because I'm giving that policy at the root level, and from that root level to my organization, and from organization to my AWS account. And that AWS account will have the same service control policies that I have at my parent account. And if I add another user, and if I want to deny certain access to that particular user in that particular AWS account, I'll be able to do that. So it is altogether different from IAM policies in general. Okay. Do anyone has any question regarding this?
No, Ravish.
No, Ravish, it is clear. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let me just show you an like example of how we can configure organizations in our account, right? Just give me a minute. I need to share my screen once again, and so that yeah, right. Suppose I have an account with the name of Obstry account A, right? And if I again like go to organizations over here, so you can see the hierarchy over here, right? We have a root account, and under that root account we have two more accounts with the name of Obstry account A and Obstry account B. As I told you, it is very easy to add a new account inside your organization. So there is an option to add an AWS account over here. So you can simply click on this add an AWS account. You can create a new account, or you can create an already created AWS account as well. So an invite will be sent on that particular account as well as on your account, that account needs to be a part of your organization. So you have to approve that in your email, and then that account will now be a part of your organization.
So it will act as a child account, right? For the
Yes, yes. So by default, all the accounts that I add will be a part of my root account.
okay,
Will be
fine.
a part of my root account. I'll be able to move those accounts. Let me just show you that as well. So by default, all the accounts will be a part of root account only. Like if I add another account, it will be a part of root account. But what I can do is I can select that account, or say if I want to select this account, I'll go to actions and I'll move it to a particular organization unit as well. Like if you want to create an organization unit, this is for creating the accounts, right? In a similar way, if you want to create an organization unit, there is an option to create organization unit over here, like for which uh, under which you want to create a new organization. So I want to create a new organization unit under root account. So I will be able to create a new organization unit. So all the policies that I attach at my root level will automatically be inherited by this organization unit. And under this organization unit, I will add, or I will be able to add new AWS accounts as well as the AWS accounts that are already created by someone.
No, thanks for the clarification, Ramesh. Thank you.
Okay, and if I go to the services and the policies over here, so I was talking about the service control policies over here, right? So these policies are by default disabled. So I have to manually enable them if I have to use that. So there is an option to disable, like by default they are disabled. So if I click on this disable option, so I have just few minutes back I've enabled it. So by default they are disabled. So if I want to enable it, there is an option to enable these services. So now if I go to policies, there is a service control policy, and by default it looks like this. It is a disabled. It is disabled. So if I want to apply service control policies at my organization level or at my organization unit or my account level, I need to enable it. So there is an option to enable services and control policies, and you will be able to see that it is enabled. So by default, if I as soon as I click on service control policy or I enable service control policy, this full AWS access will be created and will be associated with my organization unit as well as with my root account. So I'll just show you, because as you can see, it also shows AWS manage policy. So this is the policy that is already being created by AWS. So if I click on this policy and I go to targets, you will be able to see all the accounts that are with which this particular policy is associated. So you can see this policy is associated with root account, account A, and account B. So all the accounts A, B, and root account will have full access, full AWS access by default if I enable my SCP policy. Any doubts till now, or anything that is not clear?
No, Rish, we are good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then I'll this was a short demo of about organization, how organization looks like, and how you will be able to create new organization, as well as you will be able to add new account inside the organization, right? So it is basically a kind of, you can see, you can say as a hierarchy tree, or you can say a tree like structure wherein there is a parent account under which you can have a account or an organization unit, and under organization unit you can have another organization unit, or you can have AWS accounts as well. Okay, so now coming back to the slides. Yeah, sorry. Right, so now if I go over here, and there is an organization, this particular part is clear to you guys, right? Do you have any query regarding this, or anything else that you want to clear out? You can just ping me in the chat, as well as you can like uh, ping me in the middle as well. That's completely fine, right? Okay, so now there are different types of policies, right? So you must have like Asa has already covered one policy with the name of identity based policy, right? Which is basically associated with the identity, or you can say which is basically associated with the users or roles. As you can see in this diagram as well, we have John Smith with the user with which this policy is associated. So this is the identity based policy, the policy that you are attaching to a identity, right? And the resource policies are all the policies that are associated with the resources. I can also, like, I'm going to show you in a coming session itself about how resource policies look like. So basically there are few resources with which you will be able to associate policies directly. Like in S3 there is an option to associate policies inside the S3 bucket itself. You will be able to, suppose if you are, even if the public access is already given to the IAM user, but if in the bucket you are denying access uh, for a particular object from that particular user, that object access will not be provided to the user. So I'm gonna cover this resource based policy in a coming session itself. Okay, so identity-based policies are attached to the IAM user. It could be attached to a group or a role. These policies are basically specify at that identity can do these all permissions. Like over here, as it is mentioned, that can list objects, can read on resource, right? So you can take it as an example. You attach the IAM policy, say to a user. Suppose you are attaching it to a user named Ravish, right? And he is allowed to perform EC2, say run access, run instances action. The policy could further state, like it states that that I as a Ravish user is allowed to get the items from DynamoDB tables as well. Am I clear till now? Like what all policies are basically attached to my identity right now? So my user, I have been provided access for the EC2 instance, run access, and the DynamoDB table access. So I will be able to run the instances only, and I will be able to uh, create or update the DynamoDB tables only inside my AWS account.
So this will be on the user Ravish. Like I'll be
Yes.
attaching the policy on the user Ravish. Okay.
Yes. Identity-based policies are basically you're attaching those policies at the user level, or roles, or you can say at the group level.
Hmm. Okay.
And yes, so now coming to the next slide now, because under this there are three policies. The one is already being covered by Asta, the identity policy that I was talking about now, and the next policy is resource-based policy, right? So like let's move to the resource-based policy now. So in the resource-based policies, they are attached to a resource. Like I was giving an example, like we can attach resource-based policy to an S3 bucket, and there are few more resources with which we will be able to associate this resource-based policies. The other resources can be SQS, the simple queue service. We will be able to associate resource-based policy on a VPC endpoint, and AWS KMS, which is key management service, right? And then like I already covered this particular part, like how you will be able to, like what is the basic difference between resource based policy and an identity based policy is wherein in identity based policy you are attaching it to a user role or a group, but in resource based policy you are attaching policy to a resource like S3 bucket, like VPC endpoint or SQS. Anyone has any question up to this, or anyone wants to know about more about how these policies are created and all?
We are having a demo for this, right, Ravish?
Yes. I'll be showing. I'll be giving a demo on it as well.
No doubts, but would love to know more.
Sure. Okay, so with the resource-based policy, what we can do is we can specify like who has access to the resource and what actions he or she can perform. Right? Suppose in the S3 bucket policy, I'm allowing that with the condition that only say user Ravish has access to my bucket. Then all the other users will not be able to access my S3 bucket. And also in order to check if there is any external or say any additional access is not provided to my resource, there is another thing that we can use called as IAM access analyzer, through which we will be able to analyze that any extra privileges are not provided or any external access is not provided to my user or to my resources basically. Okay, so let me just come back quickly to the demo part now. Just give me a quick moment. I'm just like sharing my screen back again. Till now, like anyone has any questions or anything that that he or she wants to know? And why basically we are discussing about organization when we are talking about IAM, if that particular part is not clear, because in organization also we are attaching the policies, right? We are attaching SCPs, which is a service control policies, which are applied or implied on the organization level. Okay, cool. I'm just logging in my account and then I'll share my screen, right? Yeah. uh, so suppose there is a S3 bucket over here, right? This is the S3 bucket that is created with the name of test bucket offstream new, right? If I click on this particular bucket over here, you will be able to see some properties, right? There are some properties that are there with S3 bucket, and over here you can see permissions. So uh, if I'm giving some policy or I'm creating some policy at this level, at bucket level, so this policy will be referred to as a resource based policy. So I will be able to create some resource based policy over here, and depending upon that only, the that particular resource will have access to a particular user, or if I want to provide access for a given IP, I'll also restrict the access of this bucket for a particular IP as well in this resource based policy itself. So this is the resource based policy, and it is different from the identity based policies that we have said it earlier.
So there's one question, Ravi. So this resource-based policy is only like provided by only few services, right? AWS
Yes,
services
yes, yes.
or only
See,
support.
so yes, they are provided by only few services that I talked about. They are provided by like S3, SQS, VPC endpoints, right?
Okay.
And yeah, not all services offer these policies.
Okay.
The IAM policy I can attach for any service, right? Uh, the
Identity
policy that,
policy.
yeah, identity. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So this particular part is clear, right? Do anyone have any questions regarding this? Okay. So now, coming back to my slides now. Uh, Let me just share my slide once again. Do let me know, guys, when my screen is visible to you. Oh, sorry.
It is not visible, I guess. You stop that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Now it is.
yeah. So we have talked about this resource based policies, right? And now coming to the third policy, which is the service control policies. So because of this only, we are basically discussing about AWS organization part, because this policy basically offers are applied at the organization level, right? And they're applied on the organization level, and all the accounts, as I told you earlier as well, that all the accounts under that particular organization will have permissions for them. So they will be applied at an individual AWS account level or at the organization level, and all the accounts under that organization will automatically have access for the given policies that we have attached. And applying the SCP to an OU means we are applying the same policy to all AWS accounts that we have already covered. So now, if you apply service control policies, there are two ways through which we will be able to apply these service control policies. The first one is the whitelisting, and the other one is the blacklisting. So what is the basic difference if I ask you guys what is whitelisting means and what is blacklisting in general?
In whitelisting, you have all the access, and in the blacklisting, you have some particular access. You can.
No, no, just whitelisting and blacklisting
It's
in
allow
general.
and deny kind of a thing, is it?
Yes, yes, exactly. So in whitelisting, though it says whitelisting means we are allowing it, and blacklisting means we are denying. So what we basically follow over here is the blacklisting approach. In the blacklisting approach, what we do is by default, as I showed you in the AWS organization as well, as soon as I enable service control policy, AWS automatically creates an AWS full access policy, right? So which basically allows like full access to all my AWS accounts as well as to my organization units. So in blacklisting, what it does is we are basically allowing everything, and then we deny the certain access. So this
Got it.
blacklisting part is clear to you guys, right? Basically, we are allowing, first of all, we are allowing everything using service control policy. We allow everything, and then in the service control policy itself, we deny the user for certain access. Suppose I don't want my user to delete a particular VPC, or won't be able to delete VPC flow logs. So I'll give that particular AWS account full access, but even the root user won't be able to delete the VPC logs inside that account. So when I say even the root user won't be able to do that, it doesn't mean the root user of the organization. It means root user of the account won't be able to do that, because I'm attaching the policies at the organization level. So if I'm attaching the policy at organization level, the same policies will be inherited by its AWS account as well, which are a part of that organization. So the AWS account, which is a part of AWS organization, i- that particular AWS account root user even won't be able to delete that VPC flow logs if I enable, or if I block, or if I blacklist that particular thing at the organization or at the root level.
Is there any flexible like options for this? Like if I want to allow only the few permissions and just block the few ones, is there any
Yes,
option?
yes, yes, yes. I'll show you in the coming session itself. Like you have a permission, like you are basically creating the policy for blacklisting by yourself only, just like
Can
you
I
create.
add something to it?
Yes, 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 please.
I think it is some kind of implicit and explicit kind of a permissions that where you are allowing everything and denying something, it is go for the blacklisting. When where you are denying everything except this, it's go for the whitelisting, right?
Right, right, right. Exactly,
So
exactly,
it's some kind of implicit and explicit permissions.
exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
So in the blacklisting, you are basically allowing everything, and then depending upon your needs, you can restrict, or you can create
Block few.
deny policies, right? So in blacklisting, you basically create deny policies, and in whitelisting, you basically create allow policies, because in whitelisting, everything is denied by default, and you allow certain things depending upon your needs. So if
Right.
so why we use blacklisting more is because there are times when, suppose you are giving a permission for whitelisting of a subnet, but subnet won't be you won't be able to create subnet only if you do not have VPC permission, right? So in that case, you have to give some dependent permission to as well to that particular account in case of whitelisting. So the preferred approach in most of the cases is blacklisting, wherein you allow the full access to all the AWS accounts, and then block or restrict certain permissions depending upon the compliance needs on the root account or at the organization level.
Right. For an example, like there is a website from internationally where we have blacklisted IPs which are currently used for hacking or attacking, doing DDoS attack and those things.
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
those IPs generally when we create organizations, we blacklist those IPs, especially when going for the list.
yes, yes, yes. Or so even if so if I create those policy or apply that this blacklisting policy at the organization level, so even the root user of that account won't be able to delete that policy. Is this particular part is clear to you guys, like what I am saying right now?
Yes, Praveen.
that, that root user won't be able to delete means not the root user of the organization, but the root user of the account which is a part of organization, because you are applying the organization at the root level. It's a bit confusing, but I'll try to summarize it in a better way. Suppose you are applying a policy at the organization level. An organization has a root user, and under that organization you have multiple AWS accounts. But if you apply a service control policy of, say, anyone won't be able to, or nobody will be able to delete the VPC flow logs, right? So if you are applying it at the organization or the root level, it will be inherited by the organization and the accounts which are a part of that organization unit, right? And the accounts which are part of that organization unit, the root users which are part of that AWS account won't be able to delete that policy which is applied at the organization level. So they also cater to or adhere with that policy, that VPC flow logs will never be deleted by them.
So Ravish, like there was one picture that you showed, I remember. What you're saying is you will be attaching the policy. You'll create the policy at first. You'll attach it on the account level. Let's say account one, ops3 account A was there, right? So you'll be
Mhm.
attaching it over there, and
Yes, yes.
that means no user will be able to perform those activities.
Yes, let me just show you. Suppose if I have this root user, right? So if I
Uh-huh.
attach a policy over here, and this policy will be inherited by organization units, both the organization units, then this policy will be inherited by this organization unit and the AWS account. The same policy that I'm suppose VPC flow log disable won't be able to, sorry, any user or anything, nobody will be able to delete VPC flow log. I have attached this service control policy at the root level. This will be inherited by organization unit, another organization unit, and the AWS accounts under that organization unit as well, right? So even the root account of root user of this AWS account won't be able to delete that policy, because it is now a part of this organization, and only this root user has access to delete that policy.
Okay, okay. I guess I've got, yeah.
Okay. And also we will be able to create the policies at this organization level as well, or we will be able to create control policies at this organization level as well. So all if I apply it over here, then this policy will be inherited by these two accounts only, because these two are the child account of this parent, and that service control policy will not be inherited by this. It will be inherited by these two accounts only. So you have an option where you want to apply that service control policy at which particular level in your account or in your organization.
Okay, Ravish. Yeah, I think I've got it. So thank you.
Okay, great, great. Okay, so now here you can see that I have created some like like in this diagram you can see there is A, B, C, and then D, E, and you can see there is a SCP permission attached to the root, and there is SCP permission attached to the parent OU. And this is the C, which is the account which has the permissions common to both the things. So what you can say is, suppose I have the in the root account, this is my root account, right? And this is the parent account which is a part of this root account as well. This is my main organization root account, and this is my parent OU or organization unit, and this is my basic AWS account. So what you can do is, suppose if you are attaching a service control policy at the root account level, and in which you are basically attaching three policies, A, B, and C, in which you are giving S3 full access, right? In A you are giving S3 full access, in B you are giving EC2 full access, right? And in C you are giving RDS full access. You're getting my point. In A you are giving S3, in B EC2, and in C you are giving S3 sorry, RDS full access. And similar in the parent account, what you are doing is you are giving RDS full access, you are giving DynamoDB full access, and Lambda full access. So the child account, which is a part of both this organization and this parent account, will have the policies which are common to both the things. So this particular child account will now have a policies of RDS only. He or she will be able to create policies, will be able to create RDS only in this account. He or she won't be able to create S3, won't be able to create EC2, won't be able to create DynamoDB or Lambda, because these policies are inherited by this, and this account takes the common of both the things, the intersection you can say of both the policies on. This particular part is clear, or like anything that you want to know, or anything that is not clear in this diagram? Like you can thought of it as a root account, and this is the organization unit. So the account which is created will have the policies which is common to both the root account and the organization unit.
Yes, Ravish, got it. I'm comparing it with IAM policy, so I'm relating to it. Yeah, I can
Yes,
understand.
yes, they are kind of IAM policies only, because the structure in which you write down the policies in SAP is basically the same. Because you, if you are using the blacklisted approach, in that case everything is allowed. Then you have to just attach the deny policy, just the way you create deny policies in IAM. Similar, in a similar way, you are attaching that IAM deny policy at the organization unit level, or uh, at the account level.
Okay. Yeah.
So service control policies are very much similar to the IAM policies itself, but they are attached at the account level and not at the user level. So even if you are creating SCPs, still you need to create users, and need to restrict users for certain permissions.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and now, okay. So before going to STS, let me just give you a demo of the SCP policy as well, right. I'm just sharing my screen again, and then we'll start. This is my root account. Okay. So if I go to the AWS accounts organizations, right? So this is my root account, account A, and this is my account B, which is the child account, right? And if I go to the policies part again, and there is a service control policies that I have enabled. So how basically you create service control policies is in a similar way how you create any other policy, right? So I have created one policy already for you guys, wherein I am not allowing my accounts for the internet access. So I'm restricting the internet access to all my accounts. So what I am doing in that case is, if I go to this no internet gateway VPC access, so you can have a look on the policy. So I am denying the access for attachment of internet gateway. I am denying the access to create internet gateway. I am denying the access to create egress only internet gateway. Denying the access for create VPC peering connection. So does anyone wants to add why we are basically adding this VPC peering connection in, if I am restricting the internet access on my account?
Um, Maybe you'll use transit gateway.
Yes, so they can use VPC peering, or they can also use transit gateway. So in the transit gateway, if that with they basically get peered to a account B which has internet access, so that account will also get the internet access through account B. So we have to deny that VPC peering connection, and we have to deny the accept VPC peering connection as well. And then we have global accelerator and global accelerator update, create and update access. So this is an new networking related component that is being, or service which is added by AWS. So through which basically accelerates or increases the speed of through which you will be able to access your servers. So they are denying the access for this as well. So if I attach this policy, if I go to my policy now and in the service control policy itself, so there are two policies over here. The first one is the full access. In this full access, we are allowing everything. So this particular policy is AWS managed and is created by AWS and is by default created as soon as I create an organization. So this policy is attached with my these two accounts, account A and account B. So account A and account B have full access right now. If I attach only this particular policy, AWS full access, so they would be able to do anything inside their account. And now, if I go to my second policy that I have created for no internet gateway VPC, and if I go to my targets over there, so currently there are no targets attached. So I will be able to attach the targets inside that. So suppose if I want my account A and account B both, that they both don't be able to create won't be able to create internet gateway or won't have access for internet. So if I attach it, fail to attach the policy, no internet gateway to one target. Okay. To have a look on this. So currently it is attached to account B only. I'll need to check why I'm getting that error. Let me just try it once again. Attach an account A. Yeah, so I'm not be able to attach it on account A because this account A is the only root account over here. I'm using this root account as Ops3 account A only, so that's why. So let me go to this account B, Ops3 account B, right, and try to create internet gateway in that account. Yeah, so this is my Ops3 account B, and I'm going to VPC. And if I go to internet gateway now, and if I click on create internet gateway, I'm giving some test internet gateway, right? And if I click on create internet gateway, I'll get an error because I have denied that permission on that account level. So even if I have logged in this particular account from the root user right now, so using the root user as well, I'm not able to create or give internet access to my account. So that's a small example of service control policies. We can also create a similar kind of policies that the one that I've created just now. For suppose the one I was already talking about was for that nobody will be able to delete the cloud trail logs or VPC flow logs. So you will be able to create similar kind of policies over here, which can be which will be marked as a customer managed policies. Okay, so any questions till now? Anything that is not clear?
No, Ravish.
Okay, great. Okay, so now coming back to the slides now. So this SCP part is clear to you guys, right? The AWS organization and SCP stuff.
Yeah, Ravish. It is.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me just share my screen and back to this thing. Yes. What is STS? Like we have talked about roles, right? So does anyone aware of STS thing? Why we use STS, or from the diagram itself, if anyone can give me a brief thing about why we use STS or what is the use of STS?
So IAM role generally uses STS to create a temporary credentials, just like in this diagram, right?
Right. Exactly, exactly. So all the roles that we create, in general, suppose if you're creating a user, right, it and you are giving it programmatic access or say console access and programmatic access, you will be provided with a secret key and an access key. So those are the permanent credentials, because those credentials, if you are using inside EC2 account, unless and until you delete those credentials, those credentials are valid throughout the tenure. They are not gonna delete by themselves, or there is no, you can say, time foundation for those credentials if you are creating for an IAM user. But in if you are creating it for via role, right, it creates a AWS STS call. So as soon as you create a role, and any user who wants to assume that particular role, right, he or she will be provided with the temporary credentials. The temporary credentials are similar to the IAM credentials only, that he or she will be provided with the security token, the access token. With that, another token will be provided which is valid for a certain duration of time, which is called as a security token. This security token is a time bounded token ranging from 15 minutes to 12 hours. It could be 15 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour, 15 hours, sorry, 12 hours, like that. So if you don't want to, if you want to say there is a developer and he wants to have access for EC2 instance, so you don't want to provide him the access for EC2 instance, or the permanent access for those EC2 instances, right? So what you can do is you can create a role, and that user will assume that particular role, or you can attach user to that role, and that user will have a temporary credentials for accessing that EC2 resources. Any questions regarding this thing?
This is for the security practices, right? So
Yes,
to
right.
have
For security practices, and also I don't want to give the permanent access to my user. In that case, I'll always go for this approach. So, so when you assume a role, that assume role thing calls for a STS API. This is secure token service, which basically calls for a temporary credentials in that case. So there is a role which calls for assume, like there is a user which is assuming the role. So that assume role calls the STS API, and then STS API authenticates that user, and then only provides that user with the temporary security credentials which are valid for a certain duration of time. Okay, so in AWS STS, it is a AWS service that allows you to request a temporary security credentials for your AWS resources. So it can be an IAM authenticated users or federated users as well. So anyone is aware of what are federated users, or anyone wants to add about federated users or why we use federated users?
different account users.
Uh, that can also, you can also call that as federated user, but in general the federated users are like LDAP. You must have heard about light directory, right? LDAP,
Active Directory.
active directory, and single sign on SAML,
Yeah,
right?
we have Azure. In Azure, we have Azure AD,
Azure
something
AD,
similar
right?
to it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 perfect. So, so all these things are federated users, and you can also thought of like suppose you are logging into say Groffer's website, right? So they give you an option to enter your email ID and password, and also they give you an option to sign in using Google or sign in using Facebook, right? So that is also a part of federated users only, wherein using single sign on, like using your Gmail ID only, you will be able to log in into different accounts. In this case, using your Google account or using your Facebook account, you will be able to log in into AWS account, and then you will have respective permissions that are attached to your group of which you are part of. Okay, so these temporary credentials are for a short duration of time and can be active for few minutes to several hours, right? So once expired, they can no longer be used to access your AWS resources. So you won't be able to access your AWS resources once these credentials expire. So they are temporary credentials, so they are valid for a certain duration of time only. Right, and use cases we have already talked about. One is for the cross account access, right? Suppose you have one user in, say, account A, and you want to provide permission of that user to have access of resources that are present in account B, right? You have a user in account A, say you have a user named Ravish, and Ravish wants to access resources that are part of account B. So in that case, what this is a cross account access, right? I am accessing the resources of a different account. So for that purpose as well, we use AWS SPS. Though it looks to us like we are using only assume role, right? But at the backend as well as in the policy, we define the SPS part. And apart from that, in the federated user success, the identity federation that I was talking about, Active Directory and Google single sign-on and Facebook single sign-on, we use this approach. And all the application on AWS EC2 instances are also, like if I want to, I have created a role, right, and I have assigned that role to my EC2 instance of S3 bucket, like Asa has currently shown you guys, right? So for that particular purpose as well, we use STS, or STS is being used at the backend, because that EC2 instance is assuming the role to have access for the S3 bucket. So these are the different use cases where this STS is being used, right? And now, coming to the benefits of STS. So, these credentials are short-term credentials. So, if you don't want to give permanent credentials to your user, so for that purpose, you can go with temporary credentials and embed those temporary credentials, and then you can revoke the access as well, right? So, no distributing or embedding long-term AWS security credentials in an application. So now you don't have to provide the permanent credentials inside your application, right? And grant access to AWS resources without having to create an IAM identity for them. So you can provide AWS resources access without creating the IAM identity. Like I told you, for my EC2 instance, if I want to give access for S3 bucket, I don't have to create a user and then put on the access key and ID of that user. I can simply create a role and then attach that role to my EC2 instance, and then I will be able to access the S3 bucket, right? And the next, the since the credentials are temporary, you don't have to rotate or revoke them. So since these credentials are temporary, I don't have to rotate these credentials or delete those credentials or manually. I don't have to revoke them. They are automatically get expired. So no need to embed long-term security credentials. It's the same point that we covered in the first point, right? So now we don't have to put on the long-term security credentials. We can simply use the short or temporary credentials now if I want to provide uh, access to my user for a short duration of time. Right. Okay. And now coming to the next slide. Yes. So in STS we have different type of API methods that are being called. Right. The one method is assume role. I'll be giving a demo to you guys on assume role right now. Right. And the other one is assume role with web identity. The next one is assume role with SAML. Other API method is get federation token, and the last one is the get session token, right? So what is the first API? The first API call, which is assume role call. Like anyone wants to add anything to that?
Assume role as in I will be like there will be a role which I can uh, sorry, there's some noise from my just one moment.
Maybe it will help us to get like the credentials, temporary credentials using the STS. So if
Yes, all these APIs are STS APIs are doing the same thing, right? They are providing us with the temporary credentials. But why there are different types of API calls are there?
it's
Why
maybe
we have
for the
assume role?
internal resources, right? Resources and the user that account have.
Uh,
Or
yeah.
based on their use cases, where they are being used, how they are being used.
Yes, exactly. So depending upon their use cases only, these API methods are being designed. Suppose the first is the assume role. So if you want to like the example that I was earlier talking about, like if I say I have a user created an account A and I want to give access to my account A user for S3 bucket in account B. So in that case, assume role API will come into picture. So this is typically used for cross account access only. This assume role API. The AWS account who wants to share a resource with another AWS account can create an IAM role, right? Say account B who wants to share his resources with account A, or who wants to share his S3 bucket with me, will have to create a role. That particular account will create a role and add the permission policy and trust policy to the role. And then that role, in that role, we have to add the trust policy or trust relationship policy for my user that is created in account A. So like I have to access the S3 bucket that is there in account B. So for that purpose, I have to create a role in account B, right? And in account B, uh, I have to create a trust relationship with my account in account A. So that's the thing that we need to do in account B first. Like we are creating the role in account B, and that user that is me in account A will assume that role, and then only he will have access to all the resources or the permissions that I have provided inside that role. Uh, so for this purpose, for this cross account purpose, we use assume role API STS method. So the other account who wants to access this, like my account, needs to click on switch account role. Like I'll show you that in the demo itself. Switch role feature in the AWS console. To enter the role name, then I have to enter my role name, the account ID of my other account, of my account B, and then I'll be switched to that account, and then I'll be able to perform all those functions that are being provided to me via that role. Okay, and after that we have assume role with SAML. So this API call also returns a set of temporary credentials only, just like assume role for users for the users which have to be authenticated via SAML, like Active Directory. So for Active Directory purpose, we use assume role with SAML, with SAML. If I want to provide access to a user who is integrated via Active Directory and I want to give that user access for certain things, in that case I have to go with uh, assume role with SAML, right? And similar in the similar way, we have assume role with web identity. So just like I talked about SAML, for my web identity, like for Google sign on, and for Facebook sign on, I'll go with assume role with web identity only, wherein my web identity as will be assuming a role, and then depending upon that, he or she will be provided with certain permissions. Okay, any doubt till now, like all like 3 points that I've covered? Any confusion regarding these 3 points?
No, Ravish.
Okay, cool. Now coming to the fourth point, which is get federation token. This API call needs long term. Instead of short term credentials, this particular API call needs a long term credentials for IAM user instead of IAM role, and also instead of IAM user, instead of IAM role, it needs access for permanent credentials for a IAM user. Just like we create policies for IAM user, we have to create long-term credentials for IAM user in, if we call get federation token API method. Because of this API method only in the safe, we will be able to run it in the safe environment, because we are using the long-term credentials. We have to attach a plenty of security groups and firewalls in that case if we are using get federation token, because it gives us with the not short-term credentials but a long-term credentials. Okay, and the next one is the session token, which is basically typically used to receive temporary credentials for untrusted environments. Uh, all the above examples we talked about, we there is some trust relationship that needs to be created in my account B. As I told you about, in my account B, I have to create a role, and inside that role, I have to do the trust relationship with my account A, right? But in get session token, I don't have to. I'll be given a temporary credential, but without any trust. Like I'm not in my trust relationship, I'm not giving any account ID or I'm not giving a trust relationship with any user in that case. It returns a set of temporary credentials for AWS account. It also returns the temporary credentials only, or an IAM user. So any questions till now, like about these APIs that I have discussed? Okay, okay. So now coming to the STS benefits now. So why we use STS? I think it's somewhat same what we have discussed earlier. So no distributing or embedding long term. So now we don't have to embed long term security credentials in an application, right? So we can simply use the short term credentials or temporary credentials. Grant access to AWS resource without having to create IAM identity for them. Since the credentials are temporary, we don't have to rotate or revoke them. No need to embed long term security credentials. I think we have covered this part earlier. I think I've moved to back like a previous slide.
Okay, that will be a good part for the revision then.
Yeah.
That's a benefit only, no issues.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Pankaj. Okay. So now, yeah. So over here, I'll be showing you guys a few, like a short diagram of how STS is being called and how a user will be accessing the resources in account in a second account, right? So in the first one, you can see STS assume role over here, right? So a user has a set of credentials. Like this IAM user has his own credentials, his permanent credentials, you can say, that allows which basically allow him to call this STS assume role API. So this IAM user should have this STS assume role permission first of all. If this IAM user doesn't have this permission, he or she won't be able to assume that role and won't be able to access the services or resources in account B. So a user has a set of credentials attached to that which allows them to call STS assume role. They make the API call to STS, then this particular STS assume role call is being sent to AWS STS, and then they sign the request with the long-term security credentials. Because IAM user has their long-term security credentials, they are given they basically provide AWS STS with their long-term security credentials. Long-term security credentials are their AWS access key, their secret key, and region, and you can say the JSON, like in which format they want. Basically the AWS access key and secret key they provide to AWS STS. Then STS get the API call, and before it does, IAM check if the user has permission to make this API call in its identity based permission. So they first check if that trust relationship is being created or not. Sorry, they check the permissions for that particular user. If that particular user has a permission to call for this particular API or for this relationship or not, right? And only if both of those checks are succeeded, like this temporary credentials are valid and he has the permission, then only his request will be forwarded to the next part, right? The user can then use that, and then after checking the trust relationship and the permission that user has and his this permanent security credentials, this AWS STS validate his request and then returns this user with the temporary credentials. And these temporary credentials are valid for a certain duration of time only. Any questions till this part? Okay, in STS there are two things. Like if I am gonna show you a demo right now in for cross account access, there is a trusted account and a trusting account. Trusting account and trusted account. Trusting account is the account that owns the resource. So you can say this particular account for which this user needs access. This account is called as trusting account. Trusting account, and the user who needs access for this resource, this user belongs to the account called trusted account. This is trusted and this is trusting. Any doubts regarding this thing? Okay, okay, guys. Then I'm moving to the demo now, wherein I'll be showing you cross account access, wherein I will be creating a user in account A who will be accessing the resources in account B, right? Okay, so let me just share my screen again and give you a small demo on it. Account A. Actually, I have to create two accounts, so just bear with me for a few more minutes, please. Okay. My entire screen is visible to you guys, right?
Yes, Ravish.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll be giving a demo on this approach wherein I have two different accounts, right? I have account Offstream account A and Offstream account B. I've created a user named Asta who has IAM user in account A and would be able to log into account B. Would be able to log into account B account and see all the features available there because I basically providing access to Asta for account B. I'm providing access Asta whose user is created in account A to access resources that are present in account B, right? So let's start with the demo. First, I will go to IAM. Click on IAM right now. Okay, I need to log in from the root user first, so I guess I have to go here. This is my account A, right? And I have another account B, and just switch. Maybe 344. Yeah, over here we have account B, right? Just yeah, so basically I've created one user called Asta in this particular account B, right? And I want to provide access to Asta user for S3 bucket or to say read only access for account A, right? So I've created this user in account B, and in account B as well I have given this user permissions for read only group only. So if I go to this user over here, you will be able to see different options. There's a permission of option. So in the permission you can say you can see there is one permission that is already attached, which is user change password, right? And other is assume role inline. One is the inline policy that I've attached. This will I'll give you a demo about it in the upcoming slide itself. And I have added this user to this group. Like I've added this user to be a part of read only group, And in this read only group, I have basically attached this assume role inline policy. I'll give you a look on what all policies are basically attached on this user on this group currently. So if I click on this group, read only group, right, and under this group there are two users that are associated with this group. One is Asa, another one is test user. And if I go to the permissions, there are some permissions that one permission that is assigned or is assigned to this group. This is assume role inline permission. So what I have done is, as I have shown you in the diagram itself, that the user should call for STS assume role API, right, to in order to get the temporary credentials. So I have provided this user with the access for STS assume role permission first, right, so that this user will be able to call the resources that are present in the account B, right. So this is from account B part. Now coming to account A, for which account B needs to access resources, right? So I'm coming to account A now, and account A. I think it's logged in somewhere. Okay, no worries. I'll log it again then. Just clean out myself. Just give me a second. This is my account in which I'm logging right now. But I think I'm not able to. So in this account, the account is just, let me just change the region as well. If I go to IAM now, and there are different users that are created inside this account, right? And there are roles that are created. Some roles are by default created by AWS. These are AWS managed roles, and this is one role that I have created for cross account access, right? So if I click on this cross account access role, right, and if I come to it, I have attached the read only policy with this particular role. So why I have attached read only policy with this role is because the user in my account B, the user named Asa, who wants to access the resources in this particular account, will assume this role, this cross account read only role, and that user will have read only access in this account, right. So I've attached this read only access policy with that. And also I was talking about trust relationship, right? So in the trust relationship, I have to add my other account. So you can check the account ID over here. Let me just zoom it a bit for you guys, right? So the account ID is 767, but as you can see, the account ID for this account is different, right? So I am trusting this account, I am adding it as a trust relationship. So any role, assume role request that comes from my this account will be authenticated by this particular role now. because I have created a trust relationship with my account B. So after this thing, like I have assigned this particular thing, I have created a trust relationship. I have attached the read only permission to my user. So now my user in my account B, whose name is Asta, will now be able to access the resources that are part of this account, right? You can see the account IDs are different, right? The account ID of my account is 3144, and if I go to the account ID of this account, the account ID is different, right? 76755. So now I've logged in this into this account uh, through a root user now, and this user will now be able to access the resources that are present in account A. So how will I be able to do that? I need to click on this thing. Mm, Let me just first log out from this account, and I'll try to log in back with with my user. Right, and I have created a role in account this, in account Ravish. I have created the role, and I want to provide access to the user who is Asta in account, in a different account, in this account, which is a trusted account. So now what Asta as a user will do is, she's gonna assume this particular role, and then she will have access to all the resources in my this particular account, right? So for that, let me just go back first over here. This is my account. First, let me just create a S3 bucket so that you will have a look whether or not I have moved to that particular account, right? So if I go to oh, here and I create test Oxtree, right? I've created this bucket. I have given this bucket the pre access. Right, I've created this bucket in account 3144, right? And I have a user named Asa who is created over here. And if she wants to access the resources in my account, I have to click on switch role access. Then I have to click on switch role, and it will ask me for these three things. First is the account ID. So I have to input the account ID. For that, I have to copy the account ID from over here. I'll copy the account ID of my account. I need to give the role that I've created. So again, I'll go over here, I'll go to IAM, and then I'll click on roles. In the roles, I'll be able to see the role that I have created. So this is the name of the role. I'll copy the role name. I'll go back to my user again. I'll copy it, and I'll say Ravish account, right? Because I am providing Asa the access for my account, which is Ravish account, right? And suppose I'm giving some color, and then if I click on switch role, so let's see what happened next, right? I have created an S3 bucket in my previous account. So if I go to S3 now and check, so you will be able to see, I'll be able to see the two buckets that are part of Ravish account, right? If I go over here, you will be able to see the buckets that I have created. So via assume role, I am basically able to access the buckets that I have created in Ravish account via assuming the role created in Ravish account, right? Okay, so any questions regarding the demo or anything that is not clear? Though I tried to cover it, but I think There might be some doubts from your end as well. Hello.
Not right now, Ravish. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so this is the cross account access that I've just shown to you guys, that one account is basically accessing the resources that are part of another account. So the other account has to assume the role, and the the account in which needs to share his resources. In that particular account, you have to create the roles. You have to attach the trust relationship with my account who needs access. Right, and now just coming back to my final few slides, and then I think it's complete. Okay. 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 Let me just share my screen back again with you guys. Okay. So we have already, like, I've shown you a demo on this particular thing, right? Instead of allies, we have named over here as Asta, and who needs access for the the production account. The production account here was my account with the name of Ravish, right? So Asa was able to access the resources of my account. There's three resources that I have created in my account, right? Okay, guys. So now, since we have already talked a bit about IAM, its policies, roles, and everything, right? So anyone wants to add what all best practices do you think are a part of this?
Regarding the role or in
I
IAM?
am policy in general. I am policy in
Okay.
general. What all best practices we should follow in order to assign a policy, in order to create a policy, in order to create a user or anything like anything related
Rotation
to IAM.
policy, rotation policy of access keys and passwords.
Yes, yes. We should always rotate our secret keys and policies which are not in use. Also deleting the policies which are not being used. Like in by AWS, it is defined like for 90 days. Like after 90 days, we should always rotate your keys, access keys, secret keys, as well as the unused policies that are there.
For different purpose, we should have different user or different roles, only with particular permission which is required.
Yes, least privilege
Yeah.
access. So we should provide our user with the optimal or the required access only. We should not give. Suppose if a particular user require access for, say, a DynamoDB table column access only, then we should not provide him access for the entire DynamoDB table, right? We should go ahead and provide him access for a DynamoDB table column only, only about for that column itself.
Okay.
Maybe
Having
creation of
password
groups
is
based on uh, yeah. Someone is saying.
Prakash, you continue, sir.
Okay, thank you. So maybe creation of groups as per the teams. Let's say QA team will be having a group, and we will attach. Let's say there are 10 users. We can add them to the QA group, and the policy will be attached onto them. So
Yes, yes,
yeah,
perfect, perfect. So,
yeah.
the like in the production environment, because it is not a good practice to attach policies directly to the users. So, the preferred way is you should create groups and you should add users in user to the groups, and you should attach policies to the groups directly. Because if in that case, if any user who is gonna be a part of is a new user who is added in, suppose in your dev team or in your DevOps team, you can simply add that user in the DevOps team, and then he or she will have the permissions that are already applied onto that group. So you don't have to manually assign all the policies separately on the users. Any other best practices that you think that we should incorporate always while creating or giving access to our
Few
IAM?
points in the chat box. Asta, if you can get through them.
Yeah, it says by Pankaj, root user should not be used.
Uh,
Yes, yes, we should never ever use our root user if because Even we as soon as we create a root user, we should always delete its secret key and access key. Root user should always be used only for the billing purpose. You should not use root user to do anything else except for the billing purpose. That is being recommended by AWS as well.
You
Um,
already covered one. We should use the rows instead of the normal keys, like long term
Yes,
keys.
yes. Wherever possible, we should go with the roles instead of giving the keys. Suppose if I like Asa was giving an example of this in the EC2 instance, we do not. It is not the right approach to put on your permanent credentials of secret key and access key, right? So the preferred approach would be to create a role and assign that role to your EC2 instance, and you can assign the policies to that role. So which all policies you give to that role, say S3 access policies or S3 full access, then you will be able to access S3 from that instance directly.
Also, which is says add MFA for root user.
Yes,
So
that
yeah,
not
Bhupen.
only just for MFA, we should use MFA for each and every user. We should always prefer to use MFA for each and every user, because suppose there is a company who is having say 10 or 5 teams, right? If any, say if you do not enable MFA, it is prone to attacks, right? It is prone to because OTP is not, or that temporary you can say authentication OTP is not being generated on your app in that case. So anyone can guess your password, and then your entire infra will be hacked depending upon your permissions that your user have. So you should always give multi MFA or enable MFA on each and every user that is a part of your organization.
I'm not sure if we can like restrict on the basis of source IP if it is possible for. I
Yes,
think that can be also a good
Yes,
best
yes, yes,
practice.
yes. Yes, we can do that. That is also a best practice, but it would be a like you can say a bit of cumbersome process, because uh, every now and then we have to change the IPs, because IPs for all the users can't be fixed, right? There are dynamic
We can
IPs.
use VPN IPs, like we can.
Yes, yes, yes. For the VPN access, yes, perfect. Then we can use that.
Thank you.
Anyone wants to add any more points? Anything else apart from the points that we have covered?
I
Okay.
think we
So
covered many of them, but
yes,
thank
yes,
you.
yes. I think all the points we have already covered. Let's see. So lock away your
Summarizing.
yes, lock away your AWS account root user access keys. I think we have already covered it. We should never use our root user access keys. Use roles to delegate permissions. This point also we have covered. We should use roles instead of using like permanent credentials of access keys and secret keys inside our EC2 instances, or for any case we should go for roles to delegate permissions, right? Grant least privilege. Give the user only the optimal or the required permissions only. Do not give user some extra permissions, because it could lead to any mishap in the coming future as well, right? Get started using permissions with AWS managed policies. So if you want to start with the policies and want to see how policies work, there are policies that are being created by AWS as well. There are AWS managed policies. You can have a look. There are like n number of like there are I think there are 100 plus policies that are being created by AWS only. AWS full access, read only, etc., etc. So all those policies are being created by AWS. You can have a look on them. Then you can use those policies, and you can customize it according to your need as well. After like if you are an if you are new to IAM, I will say the preferred approach would be first have a look on AWS managed policy, how they work. Try with managed policy, and then create your own custom policies. Then the validate your policies for validation. Asta has already shown you about the simulator, right? So you can use simulator to check whether you have created the policies correctly or not, right? And then use customer managed policy instead of inline policies. So the disadvantage of inline policy we have already seen, that it is associated with a particular resource, right? So you can't apply it to one resource and then to another resource, right? It is attached to a particular resource only. So go for a customer managed policy instead of inline policies. Use access levels to review IAM permissions. So there is access level or access analyzer, which basically reviews the IAM permissions. So like if I get some time, I'll walk you through the access analyzer as well, like how he that particular thing analyzes if anything or any permission is vulnerable to what you shouldn't have done, right? So use access levels to review IAM permissions. Then configure a strong password policy for your users. So strong password policy means you should use alphanumeric characters with special characters, right? And it should be say minimum 10
Length.
length. Yes, 10 in length, right? I'm so sorry. Yeah. Configure a strong password. Yeah. Next, enable MFA. We have also talked about it right now, that we should enable multi-factor authentication. So for that, you can use Google Auth, or there are other apps, Auth, and it's available in Google.
Microsoft Authenticator.
Yes, multi-factor authentication, through which we will be able to, uh, like after putting on your username and password, there is an you will receive a code which is valid for 60 seconds, which automatically gets rotated after every 60 seconds. So it is the best way that you should enable MFA on your account. Then comes use roles for applications that run on Amazon EC2 instances. So we have also covered this particular part as well, right? And do not share access keys. Never ever share your access keys with anyone, because if anyhow any person gets access to your access keys, he or she will be able to do anything from the CLI itself, depending
It's a
on the
credit card.
permissions that you have. Sorry.
It's a credit card for us. So
Yeah,
don't have to.
yeah. Then we should rotate credentials regularly. Like we should attach a rotate credentials policy. Like after 90 days, after every 90 days, your access key and secret keys should be rotated. You should create such kind of thing, because there are times that you are using the same permanent credentials and they are there for a year or so, and somehow some hacker got an access of your one of your access key, and then he can do blunders in your account, right? So you should always rotate your credentials regularly. And then remove unnecessary credentials. Suppose there are few users who are not accessing the AWS account or access key, and it is not mandatory, or we should not use, or we should not give the users programmatic access if they do not require them, right? We should only give them console access if that particular user is only needs. Suppose you have a finance team, right, and they want to access want to check from the console only, like how much they are being billed, so they do not require the CLI access. So you can block that particular unnecessary credentials of programmatic access and just provide them with the console access. And then use policy conditions for extra security. Like there are conditions, like if your source wall, like you are allowing S3 bucket access, right? But in the condition you mentioned that if the source IP is this, then only that user will be able to access. So conditions are also mandatory things that you can attach to enhance the security of your resources. Next, and the last one is the monitor activity in your AWS account. So you should always keep monitoring your AWS account activity, like activities in your AWS account. And for that, there is access analyzer is available. You should look into the cloud trail logs, like if anyone is trying to access your resources frequently, or if there is unauthorized access kind of thing that is being done in your organization. Also, you can use access advisor, wherein you will be able to check which user is using which permissions or policies a lot, right? So now we are here with a bit of quiz, right? So let's start. So an explicit deny in IAM precedes over an explicit allow. Is
We
it true or is it
have
false?
answered, we have answers
True.
before you just completed the question.
Okay, so it's
Uh,
true,
it's
right? Because by default,
have you
all
leaked the question paper to Prakash? He answered it very quickly.
an explicit deny in IAM precedes over an explicit allow, because by default AWS do not want, like they deny everything. Like if you are not mentioning any allow inside your policy, everything is denied by default. just to for this for the security enhancement purpose only, they are doing that, right? So what all permissions you require, you can simply allow it. So the answer for this is true, right? So now, coming to the next question, which of the following sections in a policy specifies the entities to whom access to a resource is granted or denied? Yes. So there, so policy has some sections, right? We have statement, we have principle, we have resources, we have conditions, right? So which section in that particular policy specifies the entities to whom access to resources granted or denied? Like the entities, which basically defines the entities who can access or who do not have the resource access, or the resource access is denied to them. So out of this, like statement, resource, principle, and conditions, what do you think, guys?
Home, I guess condition part might be the.
Mm.
You're asking about the entity that who can actually access, right? Not about the resources.
Yeah, entity can be yes, entities in general, like in it can be IAM, role, account,
And it can be the resources, I guess.
resources. Anyone else? Okay, so the answer is principle, because in the principle we defined the user or the path for that, right? That this entity has access to that resource. Okay, so now coming to the next question. Which of the following is the most secure way of giving access to AWS services to application running on EC2 instances? I think we have talked about it a lot in
I
this
had a demo also on
in the
this.
demo also. We have a demo like twice. We have a demo about this thing. So I guess
Roles.
roles. Yes, right. Roles. Roles is the most secure way, because via roles on we are not basically providing the permanent credentials. We are providing the temporary credentials only. And the next question is, by default, a new user in IAM has permission to log into the AWS console. Is it true or is it false? Suppose I am creating a new IAM user. I am just creating a user. I'm not attaching any policies or anything. I'm just creating a user. Do that user have access to AWS console, a login to the AWS console?
No, Ravish. I guess no, because there's a special permission policy that we need to attach. Yeah.
Right. Right. By default, if I do not provide any permission to my user, if I'm just creating the user, he or she won't be able to even log in into the system, because there are login access or password reset policy, etc., needs to be applied on my user. Only then he or she will be able to log in into into the AWS console. Okay, so which of the following set of credentials are used to log in into AWS programmatically? Let me, yeah. So if I want to log in into the AWS using programmatic access, so what all things do you think are the mandate things for that?
Okay, some
Yes,
people have.
given I think the C is the option.
C, yes, right, because we have to pass on our security key and the access key in that case. So I think, and yes, C is the right answer. Okay, so I think that's the last question that we have for today. Which of the following is not an IAM best practice? Delete user account which are not in use, attach policies to individual users, manage permissions by adding users to group, or enable MFA on user accounts. You just have to think of what all best policies we have seen and just negate it. That's it. What do you think would be the answer for this?
You already
We should always actually B and C both are conflicting. So we cannot can guess that. As B is attach policy to the user and C is manage adding users to the group. So they are conflicting with each other.
No, Pankaj, it is saying which is not an IAM based
Not
practice.
an I'm best.
Agree. That's why B is the answer.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. B.
Because they are, yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
are
are
not,
contradicting to each other. Yes,
they are
yes.
contradicting to each other. If you'll go to the statement, both are either B can be true, either C can be true.
Obviously, can be true.
So
Hope
yes,
you get that point, Prakash.
I'm trying.
It's okay. Let's discuss after this.
attach policies to individual users, right? Okay, okay, guys. That's pretty much it for from my side and Asta for today's session. Please leave us a feedback. I'm also sharing the link. Like I guess I've also shared the link
Can
for
you
you.
share it again? I think few people have joined late. So
Sure, sure, sure. Okay.
Let me share it.
Yes, yes, yes. Also, guys, like we are open to any kind of discussion that or any kind of doubt you guys have regarding the presentation, and please give us a feedback because it help us to improve in terms of what we are delivering right now. Any questions? Anyone? Any doubts or anything that you think that we should work on or we should improve on?
Not right now, Ravish, but I think this will help us to like cover more area regarding the best practices for the specific cloud area infrastructure.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I will sure get back to you if I have any doubt regarding that. But thank you.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, I got to know about SCP. So thanks for that. So, I was trying to learn it, but now the concepts are clear. Yeah.
Thank you,
yeah,
thank you,
even the STS part is very interesting, which you have shown us. That is also a good one.
thank you. Okay, guys, I think if like everyone is done with the feedback, we can uh, we think we are done for the day today.
Okay. So we can drop, right?
Yeah, sure, guys. Please leave us a feedback and then
Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Prakash. Sorry, Asta. Thanks a lot, Ravish.
thank you
Thank you,
everyone.
Ravish.
Thanks a
Thank
Have
lot.
a good day, everyone. Bye bye.
you.
Thanks, Ravish.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining, everyone.
Thank you, Asta.